and you know, I want to go back to what you was talking about with the record labels, right? Because you said it's they make songs by committee.
Yes.
I always think to myself, well, couldn't the artists change that if they just simply stop making the rap that has the criminal intent? But you saying that they're being pushed to make these kind of records.
Yeah.
Man.
A long time ago. It's been happening forever. Some of the songs that you love, some of the MCs you love, you know, it was done by committee. It wasn't, you know, a man with a pen and a mic. You know what I'm saying? That's me. I'm a man with a pen and a mic.
Yeah. So was NWA ever, you think they was ever part of the big corporate agenda to push negative content?
Yeah, they were. But not a willing, knowing participant. We thought our music was going to be underground. We didn't make our music big. You know, we did not make our music blow up. Who benefits and profits off our bickering and our division? You know, it's like follow the money. I don't know their names, Bill, but if you follow the money, you go high enough, you start to see, okay, you know, this is an industry. Okay, let's take rap music.
Let's take it.
Same people who own the labels own the prisons. So
literally the same people?
Literally the same people who own the labels own private prisons. So, you know, it seems really kind of suspicious, if you want to say that word, that, you know, the records that come out are really geared to push people towards that prison industry.
But they didn't make you write those lyrics.
It's not about...
So the same people that own the record company own the prisons. And here's something for y'all to look up. Look up prison industrial complex. And the kicker is that these private prisons have shares that are traded on the stock market and so forth. And the people who own these shares happen to be in the government, record companies, so forth. And the people in the government aspect of it, they ultimately lobby and ask for higher sentences for more violent crimes and longer sentencing times in order to keep these private prisons packed. And now think about what influences the street, right? Music, right? Music, and even when you go back even further, right? You go back to the origins of what we would know as Satan. You know, he has another name called Pan, P-A-N. Pan is also known as the Pied Piper. If you remember the mythology behind the Pied Piper, he plays flute and everything would follow. Now, music, and you think about rap and a lot of hip hop, like it's deep, it's dark, the beats are warrior-like type of beats, you know what I mean? They bring out the warrior in a person. And, you know, not to get off topic about what we're talking about, but music plays a huge influence in a person's mind, especially younger kids and so forth. Think about how many times you hear a song on repeat. Like, you know songs without even hearing them sometimes, right? The lyrics just get stuck in your head, you hear the melody, so forth. So music can ultimately be one of Satan's greatest tools and assets against this world as we know it, in my opinion, because, you know, if you think about it, do you think that you're gonna hear some of this gangster rap? You think you're gonna hear that in heaven? You think you would hear that around? You think angels are listening to, you know? I mean, I'm just using logic, right? And I mean, logic may be in a whole nother aspect when you come to, you know, the divinity of the world and the nature of life, right? But there's an old myth that the CIA is behind the origins of gangster rap, and I'll let Cube tell it. I mean, he was in the industry, but ultimately, you know, hip hop or gangster rap as we know it came about as an agenda from the government as social engineering.
The letter is the secret meeting that changed rap music and destroyed a generation.
Damn.
So it says, hello. After more than 20 years, I finally decided to tell the world what I witnessed in 1991, which I believe was one of the biggest turning points in popular music. and ultimately American society. I have struggled for a long time weighing the pros and cons of making my story public, as I was reluctant to implicate the individuals who were present that day. So I've simply decided to leave out the names and all the details that may risk my personal well-being and that of those who were, like me, dragged into something they weren't ready for.
Damn.
Hold on, let me
So we gonna tell the story.
We gonna tell the story. We ain't scared.
You know what I'm saying? What they gonna do?
They after us, not just playing.
Look, that black van.
So look, so he says, between the late 80s and early 90s, I was what you may call a decision maker with one of the more established companies in the music industry. I came to Europe in the early 80s and quickly established myself in the business. The industry was different back then, since technology and media weren't accessible to people like that, like they are today. The industry had more control over the public and had the means to influence them any way it wanted.
Right.
This may explain why in early 1991, I was invited to attend a closed-door meeting with a small group of business insiders to discuss rap music's new direction. Rap music's new direction.
Yeah.
Little did I know we would be asked to participate in one of the most unethical and destructive business practices ever seen.
Crazy.
So this was the meeting. The meeting was held at a private residence on the outskirts of Los Angeles. I remember about 25 to 30 people were being there.
Right.
Most of them familiar faces. Speaking of those I knew, we joked about the theme of the meeting, as many of us did not care for rap and failed to see the purpose of being invited to a private meeting to discuss the future of hip-hop.
Talk to him.
Among the attendees was a small group of unfamiliar faces who stayed to themselves and made no attempt to socialize beyond their circle. Based on their behavior and formal appearances, they didn't seem to be from our industry. Our casual chatter was interrupted when we were asked to sign the confidentiality agreement, preventing us from publicly discussing the information presented during the meeting. Needless to say, this intrigued, in some cases, disturbed many of us. The agreement was only a page long, but very clear on matters and consequences, which stated that violating the terms would result in job termination immediately. We asked several people what this meeting was about and the reason for such secrecy, but could not find anyone who had the answers for us. A few people refused to sign and walked out. Nobody stopped them. I was tempted to follow, but curiosity got the best of me.
That's right.
A man who was part of the unfamiliar group collected all the agreements from us. So now it's going to get to the good part because the meeting about to start.
Talk to him, Jake.
It says, quickly after the meeting began, hold on one second.
Get your popcorn, y'all.
Popcorn, get your pistol. No,
for real though.
Quickly after this meeting began, one of the industry colleagues, who shall remain nameless like everybody else, thanked us for attending. He then gave the floor to a man who only introduced himself by first name and gave no other details about his personal background. I think he was the owner of the residence, but that was never confirmed. He briefly praised all of us for the success we had achieved in our industries and congratulated us for being selected as part of this small group of decision makers. At this point, I began to feel slightly uncomfortable in the strangeness of this gathering. The subject quickly changed as the speaker went on to tell us that the respective companies we represented had invested in a very profitable industry, which could become even more rewarding with our active involvement.
Damn.
He explained that the companies we worked for had invested millions into the building of privately owned prisons, and that our positions of influence in the music industry would actually impact the profitability of these investments. Then he says, I remember many of us in the group immediately looking at each other in awe and confusion. At the same time, I didn't know what a private prison was, but I wasn't the only one. Sure enough, someone asked what these prisons were and what any of this had to do with music. We were told that these prisons were built by privately owned companies who received funding from the government based on the number of inmates.
Mm-hmm.
The more inmates, the more the government would pay these prisons.
Mm-hmm.
It was also made clear to us that since these prisons are privately owned, as they become publicly traded, we'd be able to buy shares. Most of us were taken back by this. Again, a couple of people asked what this had to do with us. At this point, my industry colleague who had first opened the meeting took the floor again and answered our questions. He told us that since our employees had become silent investors in this prison business, it was now in their interest to make sure that these prisons remain filled. Our job would be to help make this happen by making music which promote criminal behavior, rap being the music of choice. He assured us that this would be a great situation for us because rap music was becoming an increasingly profitable market for our companies, and as employees, we'd also be able to buy stocks in these prisons. Immediately, silence came over the room. You could have heard a pin drop. I remember looking around to make sure I wasn't dreaming and saw half of the people with dropped jaws. My daze was interrupted when someone shouted, "Is this a fucking joke?" At this point, things became chaotic.
Right.
Two of the men who were part of the unfamiliar group grabbed the man who shouted and attempted to remove him from the house. A few of us, myself included, tried to intervene. One of them pulled out a gun, and we all backed off. They separated us from the crowd, and all four of us was escorted outside. My industry colleague who opened up the meeting earlier hurried out to meet us and reminded us that we had signed an agreement and would suffer the consequences of speaking out about this publicly, or even those who attended the meeting.
Damn.
I asked him, why was he involved with something so corrupt? And he replied, it's bigger than the music business and nothing we can do. And no, it's bigger than the music business and nothing we want to challenge without risking consequences. We all protested as we walked back into the house. I remember word for word the last thing he said. It's out of my hands now. Just remember you signed an agreement. He then closed the door behind him. The men rushed us to our car and actually waited until we drove off the property.
Damn.
So this meeting, bro.
Now that's a lot for a meeting right there.
Oh yeah, definitely. And this person later on, he said, this person actually ended up leaving the music industry after this happened. A few years after this, he ended up leaving the music industry.
Okay.
And he said he just over the years he just felt guilty because he said as he sat back and he watched these plans come to a reality
over 2 decades.
He sat back and was like, wow, they really pulled it off.
Yeah.
They really pulled this off. He was like, they were told not to sign any more political rappers, any more rappers that had messages in their music.
No positivity.
It was all to be gangster rap music that they.
But let's hear what else he got to say.
It's not about making somebody write the lyrics. It's about being there as guardrails to make sure certain songs make it through and certain songs don't. Certain flavors are exposed on the record. Some records are made by committee. Meaning record company guys sit around and tell the artists, this is hot, say that, do this. We're gonna have this guy write the lyrics. We're gonna have that. So the narrative is really kind of, structured and really made into what the record company want the record to be, and what a lot of artists are frustrated with this kind of music making. A lot of people, feel like they're being controlled by the label. This is how they do it. Telling you what songs to sing, what hooks to do, what songs, you can do your song, that's fine. That's an album cut. But the single is what we all say is the single. So you have, the record company pushing the narrative, so.
So that explains why when you hear positive hip hop, like that shit don't never get no shine. Like I know coming up in the 90s, you know, you have a diversified platform of hip hop, right? People would be singing about different things and it'd be different types. But like a lot of the narrative, like he says, just turned into gangster rap. You know what I mean? It just turned into, you know, from F the Police all the way up to Dre, Snoop, like the narrative of hip hop changed. Like even on Rap City on BET, like, you know, they would still play East Coast hip hop, but you know, it was the more, you know, Onyx, Mobb Deep, you know, it wasn't like the old classic hip hop that was just about, you know, like a fun type of hip hop, like Run DMC, you know, who else was there? You know, there was all kinds, Slick Rick. I mean, like the originators, but the narrative, it makes sense. The narrative got changed, you know.
And then, of course, the 90s came in, and there was too much consciousness going on in hip hop at that time for the powers that be. So here comes gangster rap. All right. Take off the medallions, you know what I mean? Stop all that peace and unity and let's do some hoes and cocaine and gangbanging.
Did that bother you?
Yes, it did.
Really?
Yes, it did. Just the same way as at a time, if you were a conscious rapper, you couldn't even get a record deal anymore because hip hop wasn't going that way no more. Okay. And that's directly from that gangster rap era, that gangster rap mentality, and the people who were in charge of hip hop at that time. They totally deaded the cultural side of hip hop. I mean, everything De La Soul, done. Tribe Called Quest, done. I mean, all that, done. I mean, yeah, it's still stuck around, it permeated, but they changed the whole landscape of the entire music.
So, what did you think of NWA?
NWA, I thought they were great for what they were doing, but I thought they was a definite detriment to our people, the message they were giving out. You know what I mean? The music was groundbreaking and extraordinary, amazing. You know what I mean? But I wasn't.
Now the music is coming out with an agenda to influence and think about you know what hip hop or rap from the streets really endorses. You know what I mean? I'll be old now, right? I'm 41, and I'll be listening to I tried to listen to Jeezy the other day, and I messed with Jeezy, but I was listening to that one where he'd be like, I run with real killers that'll cut your throat. They don't. All they do is, you know what I mean? I was listening to that and I was just thinking, you know, when I heard that slit your throat, for some reason, that just sounded so ugly to me now for some reason. Like, I don't want to even have that in my hemisphere. That's probably going to sound crazy to a lot of y'all out there, but I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to run with nobody that would cut your throat like that. I mean, unless push comes to shove, right? Like, yeah, for sure. But I'm not trying to hang around with somebody because he's a killer or he's a gangster or he's got that tough guy bravado, man. That's just for the birds, man. You come around me, we talking money, plays, and how to get ahead. I don't want to deal with none of that. But, you know, there's a narrative to the music, and it plays a big influence on the mind, in my opinion.
This to me is in somewhat, some social engineering going on here to make sure those prisons stay full. Now, there's a lot of dots to connect to make that happen. But I'm just giving you a broad example of how people at the top can manipulate what's going on with the people who are bickering and fighting. I just gave you a music example, but there's examples of race.
Can I cross-examine this theory?
Of course you can cross-examine, of course. Of course.
I know, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay, so if your theory is that the prison industrial complex, and I agree, that's an abomination. Mm-hmm. Start off with there. Mm-hmm. Prison I've done editorials on this on my show. Prison is one of those things that should not be in private hands.
Yes.
Along with healthcare, a few other things that are the good part of socialism. They should not be run by people for profit. I agree with that.
Yes.
I did not know about this connection to the music industry, that it's the exact same people. If by that you mean that the people who run the record companies may have stock in prisons, private prisons, that's possible because they all have. I mean, do they actually like Monday, Tuesday go to work as a record company executive, and Wednesday through Friday go to work at the prisons? No. Okay, so if
of course they're not actually running the labels.
They have
things.
financial interest in it.
They have financial interest.
Okay, so if they have financial interest in the prisons, and your theory, if I'm following correctly, is that the kind of stuff in rap lyrics works as a funnel to get people inspired to do the kind of things that would get them in prison, right? Like, for example, writing a lyric, "fuck the police."
Yeah, I mean, writing a lyric, "fuck the police,"
might get somebody arrested and sent to prison.
That might get somebody arrested and sent to prison. That's just one example, one record that the record company did not manipulate. You know, that's pure artistry.
Right.
But I've seen labels. I've
Did they
worked with artists.
Did they manipulate you?
No. I'm an independent artist. Always have been. I started off on independent labels.
So how were you able to avoid this trap that so many others fell in? What did you do right?
I wouldn't let an A&R asshole in my studio. Like, you're not fucking coming in here telling me how to make a record.
Right.
I'm gonna come from the heart. I'm gonna do what I feel. So I never allowed an A&R to. I never had anybody A&R me, but Dr. Dre. You know, so
that's pretty.
I just wasn't ever going for it, and they just kind of like let me alone, do my thing. And I was on the independent label like Priority. I wasn't on a major. And majors, they do it with singers. They do it with rappers. They have a lot to say in what's the finished product.
Isn't it always the case anywhere in show business? But okay, let's just talk music, where the people who are the most talented and are making money, therefore, for the label, of course you get to. Yeah. Of course, you get to make your own rules, because it's always about, if you're making money for me, you can get away with anything. Roseanne once sang the national anthem in front of some stadium before like the Super Bowl or some big game, World Series or something, and like butchered it almost on purpose. Mm-hmm. It was like, you can imagine what America made of fucking with their precious anthem. They went apeshit. But her show was #1 on ABC, so they kept her.
Mm-hmm.
Later on, she did something bad and they got rid of her. Times had changed. But my point is, like, when you're making people money, they're going to leave you alone. It's the people who can't afford to tell them to fuck off.
I don't know about that.
Really?
I think the more money you make, the more money that you're making for a label, more than likely, the more money you're costing to.
Yeah, they just get to rambling on now at this part right here, but ultimately, it's crazy to think about who the record execs are in the industry, right? You think about when you see them, you be like, how the hell you don't even like this? I know you don't even listen to this type of music, or do you? Like, how are you in such a powerful place to be able to pick and choose what music is hot and what music ain't? But ultimately, these record labels and companies, they come together and sit at big tables, and they listen to these songs, and they have an agenda, so forth, and they have all the money behind them to be able to push the record on the radio, the video, and that's why a lot of these rappers, they be going broke, because they may have got a $5 million deal, but at the end of the day, they owe the record company X amount for the video, for the promotion, blase. Yeah, they blew up and they got the celebrity status, but once again, what does a man gain if he loses himself in the process? You feel me? Like, you don't gain nothing. You're really the ultimate loser at the end of the day. But hip hop, as we know it, gangster rap, right? It is a socially constructed music now that has been, metamorphosized into everything we know now, right? King Von, and it's part of everyday life as we know it, right? And I mean, don't get me wrong, I mess with the beats, right? The beats is always what get me in, but it's nowadays it's the lyrics and the the lack of intelligence that's in the music that make me even very hard for me to find something to stick to. You know what I mean? It ain't for me no more. And it's crazy to think that I'd be 41 thinking, hip hop ain't for me when it's my culture, but the music is trash nowadays. I be listening to them, but the old school shit, or a few select rappers that be dropping new shit that be on the same type of programming and time that I am up here. But y'all tell me what y'all think about Ice Cube and what he was talking about right here. What y'all think about gangster rap being created by the CIA? Y'all believe that? Let me know in the comments below. And if y'all made it this far, hit me with a like if you'd be so kind. I greatly do appreciate y'all. Till the next time, I'm gone.